The transport ship's doors opened with a loud hiss, and Emma Reed stepped onto the metal platform. Hot air hit her face like a wall. Around her, the sounds of 1,000 different alien voices filled the air. Some spoke in clicks, others in deep growls, and a few made sounds like breaking glass. She had never seen so many different types of beings in one place. Tall creatures with 4 arms walked next to short, round aliens that rolled instead of walked. Flying creatures with bright feathers circled overhead while others crawled on the ground with too many legs to count. But they all had one thing in common. They were all staring at her. Emma tried to ignore the looks and whispers as she walked toward the registration area. Her boots made small sounds on the metal walkway. Behind her, other humans from the transport ship spread out in different directions. They were here as tourists and diplomats. She was the only one here to compete. The Galactic Endurance Championship happened once every 3 Earth years. It was the biggest test of strength and will in known space. Winners became legends. Most who tried it never finished. "Look at that tiny thing," said a voice nearby. Emma turned to see a creature that looked like a giant lizard walking on 2 legs. Its scales were dark green and reflected the artificial light from above. Are the humans serious about this? Other aliens around the lizard creature laughed. The sound was not friendly. Emma kept walking. She had heard worse during her training on Earth. Her coaches had told her that most aliens would not take humans seriously. They thought humans were too small, too weak, and too new to space travel to compete with races that had been among the stars for thousands of years. The registration building was huge, made of some kind of white stone that seemed to glow from within. Inside, lines of competitors waited to sign up for the race. Emma took her place behind a creature that looked like a walking tree. "Next," called the official at the desk. Emma stepped forward. The official had blue skin and 3 eyes. All 3 eyes looked her up and down. "Species?" the official asked. "Human, from Earth," Emma said. The official's middle eye blinked slowly. "Weight class?" "Standard." "Previous galactic competition experience?" "None." All 3 eyes stared at her now. "You do understand that this race has a 60% injury rate and a 15% fatality rate?" Emma nodded. "I understand." The official made some marks on a glowing pad. "Very well. You will need to pass the basic fitness test before you can compete. Report to Testing Area 7 in 1 hour." Emma took her registration chip and walked away. Behind her, she heard the official talking to his assistant in a language that sounded like singing. "Did you see that human? It barely reaches my shoulder. This should be interesting." The testing area was outside under the open sky. Emma could see 2 suns hanging above, one yellow and one red. The air was thick and hard to breathe. Gravity here was stronger than on Earth, making each step feel like she was carrying extra weight. 20 other beings waited in the testing area. Most were twice her size. A few were 3 times bigger. Emma checked her equipment one more time. Her suit was specially made for this race, with cooling systems and injury support. Her water pack held enough liquid for 12 hours of hard work. Her emergency kit had everything she might need to stay alive if things went wrong. "Attention competitors," announced a floating device with speakers. "The basic fitness test will begin now. You must complete the obstacle course in under 2 hours. Anyone who fails will not be allowed to compete." The course started with a wall twice Emma's height. Most aliens climbed over it easily with their long arms or jumped over it with powerful legs. Emma had to run at it and use small holds to pull herself up. It took longer, but she made it. Next came a pit filled with thick mud. Competitors had to cross it without sinking. The big aliens waded through like it was nothing. Emma had to be more careful. She used fallen logs and rocks to hop across. Again, slower but successful. The third obstacle was a maze made of metal walls. Inside, the temperature was very hot. Some aliens ran through quickly, others got lost, and had to backtrack. Emma had studied the layout during her preparation. She knew exactly where to go. As she moved through the course, Emma noticed something. The other competitors were strong and fast, but they were not very smart about solving problems. They used brute force for everything. When they hit a wall, they smashed through it. When they found a deep pit, they jumped over it. Emma was different. When she found a wall, she looked for a door or a way around. When she found a pit, she looked for a bridge or stepping stones. Her human brain was wired to find solutions, not just power through problems. The final test was a long run across rocky ground. By now, many of the competitors were tired. Emma was tired too, but she paced herself. She had learned to run long distances on Earth, where the air was thin and the weather was harsh. As she crossed the finish line, the floating device announced her time. Competitor Emma Reed, species human. Time, 1 hour and 47 minutes. Status, qualified. Some aliens in the crowd made sounds of surprise. A few clapped their various hands, claws, and tentacles together. Emma walked to the recovery area and sat down. Tomorrow, the real race would begin. 50 kilometers through. Terrain designed to break minds and bodies. She had qualified, but that was the easy part. As she rested, the big lizard creature from earlier approached her. Up close, she could see scars covering its scales. "I am Commander Thrak," it said. "I have won this race twice. I did not expect a human to pass the test." Emma looked up at him. "Why not? Your species is new to space. You have no natural advantages, no thick skin, no great strength, no special powers. What makes you think you can compete?" Emma stood up. Even standing, she barely reached the creature's chest. "Maybe that is our advantage," she said. "We have to find another way." Commander Thrak's eyes narrowed. "There is no other way. This race is about strength and endurance. The strong survive, the weak fall." Emma picked up her gear. "We will see tomorrow." As she walked away, she heard Commander Thrak talking to other aliens. "The human thinks it can compete with warriors. Tomorrow will teach it the truth about its place in this galaxy." Emma smiled to herself. Tomorrow would teach everyone something about humans. They just did not know what yet. The morning air felt different. Emma woke up in her small room and looked out the window. Thousands of aliens filled the viewing stands around the race course. She could hear their voices even through the thick walls. Some sounded excited. Others sounded hungry for violence. Emma put on her race suit and checked every piece of equipment 3 times. The suit was tight against her skin and made her feel stronger. The water pack on her back was full. The emergency medical kit was sealed and ready. Everything was perfect. She walked to the starting area where 47 other competitors waited. During the night, more aliens had arrived. Some looked like robots made of metal. Others seemed to be made of living crystal that sparkled in the sunlight. A few looked almost human, but with extra arms or different colored skin. The race official stood on a high platform. Its voice boomed across the area through speakers. "Welcome to the Galactic Endurance Championship. The course is 50 kilometers long. It will test your strength, your speed, your intelligence, and your will to survive. Medical teams are standing by, but rescue is not guaranteed. Some of you will not finish this race." Emma felt her heart beating faster. Around her, the other competitors made various sounds. Some roared, others clicked or whistled. A few stayed completely silent. The course begins in the gravity fields, where your weight will change without warning. Then you will cross the heat desert, where temperatures reach levels that can melt metal. After that comes the ice maze, followed by the storm valley. The final section is the mountain climb to the finish line. Emma had studied maps of each section. She knew where the dangerous areas were and where she might find advantages that others would miss. "Competitors, take your positions." Emma moved to her starting gate. On her left, stood a creature that looked like a giant spider with arms instead of legs. On her right was something that seemed to be made entirely of flowing water held in a transparent suit. 10 seconds, announced the official. Emma bent her knees and leaned forward. Her muscles felt ready to explode into action. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, begin! The gates opened, and Emma shot forward. All around her, aliens ran, flew, rolled, and slithered across the starting line. The crowd roared so loud that Emma felt it in her chest. The first kilometer was flat ground, where everyone could run at full speed. Emma stayed in the middle of the group. Some competitors sprinted ahead, but she knew they would tire themselves out early. Others fell behind immediately, already struggling with the gravity and atmosphere. Then came the gravity fields. Without warning, Emma suddenly weighed twice as much. Each step became difficult. Around her, some aliens stumbled and fell. But Emma had trained for this on Earth using weighted clothing and high-gravity chambers. She adjusted her running style and kept moving forward. The gravity changed again, making her feel light enough to float. Other competitors jumped too high and crashed back down. Emma shortened her steps and stayed low to the ground. She passed several aliens who were spinning helplessly in the air. By the 5th kilometer, Emma was in the top 20 competitors. The aliens around her were breathing hard. Some were already bleeding from small injuries. Emma felt good. Her human endurance was starting to show its value. The heat desert began at kilometer 10. The temperature rose so fast that Emma felt like she was being cooked. Her suit's cooling system turned on automatically. Around her, other competitors slowed down. Some stopped completely to rest in whatever shade they could find. Emma kept running. Humans had evolved to lose heat through sweating, something many alien species could not do well. While others overheated, she maintained her pace. At kilometer 15, she was in the top 10. The crowd's cheers seemed surprised. She could hear commentators speaking in different languages, all sounding shocked that the small human was still in the race. The ice maze began at kilometer 20. The temperature dropped so fast that Emma saw her breath turn to fog. Ice covered everything, making each step dangerous. This was where Emma's intelligence gave her an advantage. While other competitors tried to smash through ice walls or jump over them, Emma found the correct path through the maze. She passed 3 more aliens who were lost in dead ends. At kilometer 23, Emma was in 7th place. She felt amazing. Her body was working perfectly. Her mind was clear. She was actually going to compete with the galaxy's best athletes. That was when everything went wrong. The course led to a deep canyon with a narrow bridge across it. Below, lava flowed like a river of fire. The bridge looked solid, but as Emma approached, she saw that it was actually a series of floating platforms that moved up and down with the wind. The competitors ahead of her were jumping from platform to platform. Their size and strength let them leap across gaps that looked impossible. Emma studied the pattern of movement. She could do this. She just needed perfect timing. She ran to the edge and jumped. For a moment, everything was perfect. She flew through the hot air toward the first platform. Below her, lava glowed red and orange. Above her, the crowd watched in silence. Then the gravity field shifted without warning. Instead of landing gently on the platform, Emma slammed into it with crushing force. The impact knocked the air from her lungs and sent pain shooting through her whole body. She tried to catch herself, but her hand slipped on the hot metal surface. She fell. 20 meters down, Emma hit a narrow ledge on the canyon wall. The sound of her body hitting rock echoed through the canyon. Pain exploded through her left leg like lightning. When she tried to stand, she felt something wrong. Very wrong. Looking down, Emma saw her leg bent in a direction that legs should not bend. White bone showed through torn skin and fabric. Blood dripped onto the hot rock below her. Above, the other competitors had stopped racing to watch. Some pointed down at her. Others made sounds that might have been laughter. Commander Thrax's voice boomed across the canyon. "The weak human breaks so easily. This is why your species will always be nothing more than entertainment for the rest of us." Other aliens joined in the laughter. To them, Emma was proving exactly what they had expected. Humans were too fragile for real competition. Emma lay on the ledge, waves of pain washing over her. Her medical scanner was beeping urgently, telling her that she had multiple injuries and needed immediate evacuation. The smart thing to do would be to press her emergency button and wait for rescue. She looked at the torn fabric of her suit where bone showed through skin. She looked at the blood pooling beneath her leg. She looked at the racecourse stretching. Away above her, where other competitors were already moving on, Emma reached into her medical kit and pulled out a combat stimulant injector. Her hands shook as she held it to her neck. Above her, aliens were already talking about her in the past tense. They had dismissed her and moved on. The human experiment was over. Emma pressed the button on the injector. Fire flowed through her veins as the chemicals hit her bloodstream. The pain became distant, like it was happening to someone else. She tore strips of fabric from her supply pack and began wrapping them around her broken leg to make a rough splint. Each movement sent new waves of agony through her body, but the stimulants kept her conscious and focused. The other competitors were almost out of sight now, assuming she was finished. They were wrong. Emma Reed was not finished. She had not come this far to give up because of broken bones and blood. She began to drag herself along the ledge, looking for a way back to the race course. Above, the laughter was fading as aliens returned their attention to the real competitors. They had forgotten about the injured human. That was their mistake. Blood dripped from Emma's broken leg onto the hot stone as she pulled herself forward. Each meter felt like climbing a mountain. Her makeshift splint held the bone pieces together, but barely. The combat stimulants in her blood kept the worst pain away, but she could feel her strength fading with each drop of blood she lost. The ledge was only wide enough for her body. One wrong move, and she would fall into the lava far below. But Emma had studied every part of this race course during her months of preparation. She knew something the other competitors did not. There were maintenance tunnels built into the canyon, walls for the race officials to use. She dragged herself along the ledge for what felt like hours. Her arms burned with effort, sweat mixed with blood on her face. Several times she had to stop and rest, fighting to stay conscious as her body tried to shut down from shock and blood loss. Finally, she found what she was looking for. A small metal door built into the rock wall. It was designed for maintenance, robots, not for people, but Emma was small enough to fit through it. The door was locked, but Emma had brought tools. Her emergency kit included a plasma cutter for situations exactly like this. She cut through the lock and pulled the door open. Inside, a narrow tunnel led upward through the rock. Emergency lights showed the way. Emma pulled herself into the tunnel and began to crawl. The tunnel was so small that she had to move on her belly, pushing with her good leg and pulling with her arms. Above her, she could hear the sounds of the race continuing. Crowd cheers echoed through the rock as competitors passed checkpoints. Race officials announced positions and times. Emma's tracker showed her as stationary, so everyone assumed she had given up. The tunnel connected to others, creating a network that Emma had memorized from stolen maintenance maps. While other competitors used brute strength to smash through obstacles, Emma used her brain to find paths they never knew existed. After an hour of crawling through darkness, Emma emerged from another maintenance door. She was back on the main race course at kilometer 30. She had bypassed the most difficult part of the canyon crossing, but she was also alone. The other competitors were far ahead of her. Some were already at kilometer 40 or beyond. Emma looked at her broken leg and tried to calculate how long it would take her to cover the remaining 20 kilometers. With a working leg, she could run it in less than 2 hours. Crawling and dragging herself, it might take 6 hours or more. The race had time limits. If she did not finish before sunset, she would be disqualified. Emma checked her medical scanner. The stimulants were keeping her conscious, but her body was failing. Blood loss was making her dizzy. Her heart was working too hard. Her broken leg was getting worse with each movement. She should quit. Any reasonable person would quit. But Emma Reed was not reasonable. She was human. She began to drag herself forward again. This part of the course was designed to test speed and agility. Competitors had to jump across gaps, climb over walls, and navigate through obstacle courses. Emma could not do any of those things normally, so she did them differently. When she reached a wall that others had climbed over, Emma found drainage pipes that ran underneath it. When she came to a gap that others had jumped across, Emma found maintenance bridges that crossed at lower levels. The course designers had built their challenges thinking about strong, fast aliens. They had not considered someone who would crawl under, around, and through obstacles instead of over them. Emma's human ancestors had survived on Earth by being clever, not by being the strongest or fastest. They had hunted animals bigger than themselves by working together and using tools. They had survived ice ages and disasters by adapting and finding new solutions to old problems. Now, Emma was using that same human intelligence to find her own path through the course. At kilometer 35, she encountered another competitor for the first time in hours. It was one of the crystal beings, moving slowly and leaving a trail of glowing dust behind it. The crystal alien was injured too, with cracks running through its transparent body. The crystal being saw Emma dragging herself forward and stopped, moving. Its voice sounded like wind chimes when it spoke. "You should not be here, flesh creature. You are broken. Why do you continue?" Emma paused in her crawling. "Because I am not finished yet. But you cannot win. You are too slow, too damaged." "What is the point?" Emma pulled herself past the crystal being. "The point is to finish." The crystal alien watched her go, confusion in its musical voice. "I do not understand your species." "Most aliens do not," Emma said without stopping. Behind her, the crystal being stood still for a long moment, then began moving forward again. Something about the human's determination had given it new strength to continue. At kilometer 40, Emma finally saw other competitors ahead of her. They were struggling now, tired after hours of racing. Some had stopped to rest. Others were moving slowly, their earlier speed gone. Emma was still crawling, still bleeding, still fighting to stay conscious, but she was no longer losing ground. If anything, she was gaining on some of the aliens who had been far ahead. The crowd in the viewing stands had noticed her too. Emma could hear surprised voices speaking in dozens of languages. Race commentators were trying to explain how the injured human was still moving. "This is unprecedented," said one commentator in Galactic Standard. "The human competitor appears to be continuing despite injuries that should have ended her participation hours ago," another voice joined in. "Our medical scanners show severe trauma to her left leg, significant blood loss, and signs of shock. By all reasonable measures, she should be unconscious or dead. Yet she continues to move forward. This is either remarkable determination or complete madness." Emma heard the comments through her suit's communication system. She was too tired to care what they thought. All that mattered was the next meter of ground, then the next one after that. At kilometer 45, she passed two more aliens who had collapsed from exhaustion. One was the giant spider creature that had started beside her. It looked at her, with multiple eyes full of confusion. "How?" it whispered. "How are you still moving?" Emma did not have enough energy to answer. She kept crawling forward as the sun began to sink toward the horizon. Only 5 kilometers left. She had to finish before dark, or everything would be for nothing. Behind her, the crystal being was still following, inspired by her example. Ahead, she could see the final section of the course rising into the mountains. The finish line was up. There, somewhere, Emma Reed was not going to quit. Not now. Not ever. The sun was getting lower in the sky when news of the humans' continued progress spread through the viewing stands like fire. What had started as cruel entertainment was becoming something else entirely. Aliens who had been laughing earlier now watched their screens in shocked silence. Emma dragged herself up the mountain path, leaving a thin trail of blood on the rocks behind her. Every breath was a struggle. Her vision kept going dark around the edges. The combat stimulants were wearing off, but something else was keeping her moving now. Pure human stubbornness. Ahead of her, she could see the other competitors who were still in the race. Many of the strongest aliens had already finished or given up. The ones still moving were the most determined, but they were struggling too. Hours of racing in harsh conditions had worn them down. Commander Thrak was among the leaders, his powerful legs carrying him steadily up the mountain. But Emma noticed something about his movement. He kept looking back over his shoulder. The confident arrogance from the beginning of the race was gone. In its place was something Emma recognized: doubt. The big lizard alien had expected to dominate this race easily. He had expected the human to quit after her injury, proving his beliefs about weakness and strength. Instead, every time he looked back, the human was still there, still moving forward despite impossible odds. Other competitors were having the same experience. They had trained their bodies for this race, but they had not trained their minds for what they were witnessing. The sight of Emma's relentless progress was doing something to them that physical exhaustion could not do. It was breaking their confidence. This should not be possible, Commander Thrak muttered to himself in his own language. Nothing should be able to continue with damage like that. Behind him, another alien competitor slowed to match his pace. This one looked like a walking tree with silver bark and glowing green leaves. It spoke in a voice like rustling branches. "The human troubles you, warrior," Commander Thrak growled. "The human is nothing, a broken toy that does not know it is broken." Yet it continues while others have stopped. Madness. Nothing more than madness. The tree-like alien was quiet for a moment as they climbed higher. Perhaps we have been wrong about what makes someone strong. At kilometer 47, Emma reached the final major obstacle before the finish line. It was called the Wall of Challenges, a massive cliff face that rose straight up for over 100 meters. Most competitors would climb it using their natural advantages. Strong aliens with claws would dig into the rock. Flying aliens would use their wings. Shapeshifters would change their bodies to grow climbing tools. Emma had no natural advantages. She had broken bones, blood loss, and failing strength. Looking up at the wall, she should have felt despair. Instead, she started to laugh. It was not the cruel laughter that had greeted her at the beginning of the race. This was different. This was the laughter of someone who had pushed so far beyond. What should be possible that the impossible had become ordinary? She began to climb. Using only her arms and one good leg, Emma pulled herself up the cliff face. Her technique was perfect, honed by years of rock climbing on Earth's mountains. While other climbers relied on power, Emma relied on balance and efficiency. She fell twice, dropping several meters before catching herself on small ledges. Each time, she simply began climbing again. The crowd watching from the stands had gone completely silent now. Even the race commentators seemed unable to find words. "I have covered galactic athletics for 30 years, said one commentator finally. "I have never seen anything like this." "The human's medical readings show that she should be unconscious by now," added another. "Her blood loss alone should have stopped her hours ago." Yet she climbs. Every fall, every setback, she simply continues. Other competitors on the wall began to notice Emma's progress. Some stopped their own climbing to watch. A few called out encouragement in their own languages, though Emma was too focused to hear them. Commander Thrak reached the top of the wall first. his claws making quick work of the rock face. But instead of continuing toward the finish line, he stopped and looked back down the wall. Far below, he could see the human slowly making her way upward. For the first time in his adult life, the proud warrior felt something he had never experienced before: shame. He had mocked this creature for being weak, but she was demonstrating a kind of strength he had never seen. She was showing him what real determination looked like. The tree-like alien reached the top next, followed by several others. They all stopped to watch Emma's climb. Nobody seemed interested in finishing the race anymore. Something more important was happening. It took Emma over an hour to reach the top of the wall. When she finally pulled herself over the edge, several aliens rushed to help her. She waved them off and continued crawling toward the finish line. The final kilometer was mostly flat ground, but Emma was running out of time. The sun was almost touching the horizon. Race rules said all competitors had to finish before dark, or be disqualified. She could see the finish line now, marked by bright lights and crowds of spectators. The distance was less than 1,000 meters, but it might as well have been 1,000 kilometers. Her body was shutting down. The blood loss was making her vision fade in and out. Emma tried to move faster, but her arms would barely support her weight anymore. Each meter forward took enormous effort. She was not going to make it in time. That was when she heard footsteps behind her. Commander Thrak had come back. The alien warrior who had mocked her earlier was now walking beside her, matching her slow pace. "What are you doing?" Emma managed to ask. "Walking with a fellow competitor," he replied. Other aliens joined them. The tree-like creature, the crystal being that had been following her for hours. Even some who had already finished the race came back to walk with her. They did not carry her or help her move. That would have been against the rules. But they walked beside her, showing respect for what she was accomplishing. The crowd at the finish line grew larger as word spread. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy watched as the injured human crawled the final 100 meters. When she crossed the finish line just as the sun disappeared behind the mountains, the cheering was so loud it shook the ground. Emma collapsed immediately after crossing the line. Medical teams that had been waiting rushed to help her. As they loaded her onto a stretcher, Commander Thrak leaned down to speak to her. "I was wrong about your species, human. Today I learned that there are many different kinds of strength." Emma managed a weak smile. "That is what makes us human," she whispered. "We do not know when to quit." The race results showed that she had finished in last place among those who completed the course. But nobody cared about that anymore. Emma Reed had won something more important than a race. She had won the respect of an entire galaxy. 3 days later, Emma woke up in a medical facility that looked like something from a science fiction movie. White walls curved around her in impossible angles. Machines she could not identify beeped quietly nearby. Through a large window, she could see alien ships coming and going from a busy spaceport. Her left leg was wrapped in some kind of glowing bandage that felt warm against her skin. When she tried to move it, there was no pain. Whatever alien medical technology had been used on her was far beyond anything humans had on Earth. "You are awake," said a voice nearby. Emma turned her head to see a small alien that looked like it was made of liquid metal. It wore what appeared to be a medical uniform. "I am Dr. Flo. I have been overseeing your treatment." Emma tried to sit up, but felt weak and dizzy. "How long have I been unconscious?" 3 standard days. Your injuries were quite severe. Broken bone, torn muscles, significant blood loss, and exhaustion beyond what most species can survive. Your human physiology is remarkable for its ability to function under extreme stress. Emma looked down at her leg. "Will I be able to walk normally?" "Better than that," Dr. Flo said, its metallic surface rippling with what might have been a smile. "Our medical technology has not just healed your injuries, but made your leg stronger than it was before. You will have no lasting problems. A knock on the door interrupted their conversation. Dr. Flo opened it to reveal Commander Thrak, looking uncomfortable in the sterile medical environment. The big alien was carrying something in his clawed hands. "I hope I am not disturbing you," he said to Emma. "I wanted to speak with you. Before you return to your home world." Dr. Flo excused itself, leaving Emma alone with the alien who had mocked her at the start of the race. Commander Thrak approached her bed slowly, as if he was unsure of himself. "I brought you something," he said, holding out a small crystal trophy. "This is awarded to the winner of each Galactic Endurance Championship. I won the race, so by rules, it belongs to me." Emma looked at the trophy, confused. "I do not understand." "I crossed the finish line first," Commander Thrak continued. "But I did not win anything important. You did. You showed every being in this galaxy something we had, forgotten or never knew. You showed us what real strength looks like." He placed the trophy on the table next to Emma's bed. "Keep this. You earned it more than I did." Emma stared at the crystal trophy, then at the alien warrior. "I finished last. Everyone knows that." "Commander," Thrak's reptilian features shifted in what might have been a smile. "Position in a race does not matter when you change how an entire galaxy thinks about strength and determination. What you did out there, continuing when your body should have, stopped, refusing to quit when quitting was the logical choice. That was more impressive than any speed or power display." Over the following days, Emma received more visitors than she could count. Aliens from dozens of species came to meet the human who had redefined what it meant to be strong. Some brought gifts. Others just wanted to shake her hand or touch her, with whatever appendages they used for greeting. The tree-like alien, whose name was something that sounded like wind through leaves, explained that Emma's performance had started a new way of thinking about competition across the galaxy. "For too long we have measured worth by size and power," it said in its rustling voice. "Your species has shown us that the mind and spirit can be stronger than any muscle or claw." The crystal being that had followed Emma through the course visited too. Its voice still sounded like music when it spoke. "I gave up during the race. I decided my cracks were too severe to continue. Then I saw you, broken worse than me, still moving forward. You gave me the strength to finish what I had started." Emma learned that her story was already spreading across the galaxy through news networks and communication systems. Videos of her crawling up the final wall were being watched by billions of beings on thousands of worlds. Children of various species were using her name as an example of never giving up. But the most important visitor came on her last day in the medical facility. It was an elderly human woman with gray hair and kind eyes. She wore the uniform of an Earth diplomatic service. "My name is Dr. Peterson," the woman said. "I am Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council. I wanted to thank you personally for what you have accomplished." Emma felt confused. "I just finished a race. I did not even win." Dr. Peterson sat down in a chair beside the bed. "Emma, do you understand what has happened since your race? Applications from alien species wanting to visit Earth have increased by 3,000%. Requests for cultural exchanges, trade agreements, and scientific cooperation are pouring in from across the galaxy." She pulled out a communication device and showed Emma a series of messages. "Before your race, most aliens saw humans as a weak, insignificant species that had barely learned to travel between stars. We were tolerated but not respected." Emma read some of the messages. They were from alien governments, universities, and organizations, all expressing newfound interest in learning more about human culture and capabilities. "Now they see us differently," Dr. Peterson continued. "They see us as the species that does not know when to quit. The species that finds solutions where others see only problems. The species that defines strength not by what we can break, but by what we refuse to let break us." Emma handed the communication device back. "I was just trying to finish the race, and, in doing so, You changed how our entire species is viewed in the galaxy. Earth will never be overlooked or dismissed again." A few days later, Emma was cleared to return home. As her transport ship prepared to leave, she stood at the observation window and looked back at the racecourse. The wall of challenges rose up like a monument to determination. The canyon where she had fallen and broken her leg looked small from this distance, but she knew she would remember every painful meter of her crawl through those maintenance tunnels. Commander Thrak had come to see her off, along with several other competitors from the race. The big alien warrior looked different now. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something that looked like respect mixed with curiosity. "Your species fascinates me," he said as they watched Emma's ship prepare for departure. "I have been a warrior my entire life. I was taught that strength comes from size, power, and the ability to defeat enemies. But you have shown me a different kind of strength entirely." Emma smiled at him through the window. "Maybe that is why humans and aliens need to work together. We each have different strengths to offer." "Perhaps," Commander Thrak replied. "I would like to visit your Earth someday. I want to understand how a world creates beings like you." The crystal being was there too, its transparent body now fully healed from the cracks it had suffered during the race. "I have decided to apply for cultural exchange with Earth," it announced in its musical voice. "If your species can teach others to never give up, I want to learn those lessons." As Emma's ship lifted off from the spaceport, she could see crowds of aliens gathered below, waving goodbye with various appendages. The sight made her feel proud, but also humble. She had never set out to represent all of humanity or change how aliens viewed her species. She had just wanted to finish a race. The journey back to Earth took 2 weeks. During that time, Emma received thousands of messages from both humans and aliens. Children from dozens of worlds had sent drawings of her crawling up the wall of challenges. Scientists wanted to study human endurance and determination. Athletes from other species wanted to train with humans to learn their techniques. But the message that meant the most to Emma came from a group of human children at a school for disabled students. They had watched her race and drawn pictures of themselves overcoming their own challenges. One young girl had written, "Thank you for showing us that being different does not mean being weak." When Emma's ship finally arrived at Earth, she was surprised to find crowds waiting at the spaceport. Humans from all over the world had come to welcome her home. News reporters pushed forward with cameras and questions. Government officials waited to shake her hand. But Emma was most happy to see her family. Her parents pushed through the crowd, both crying as they hugged her tight. Her younger brother lifted her off the ground in a bear hug that made her laugh. "We watched the whole race," her mother said through tears. "When you fell, we thought it was over. But then you kept going, and we were so proud we could barely breathe." Her father, a quiet man who rarely showed emotion, had tears in his eyes. "You showed them what humans are made of, Emma. You showed them that we belong among the stars." In the weeks that followed, Emma found herself busier than she had ever been. She gave speeches at schools and universities. She met with government, leaders, and scientists. She appeared on news programs watched by billions of beings across the galaxy. But her favorite events were the visits to hospitals and rehabilitation centers. She met with people who had been injured in accidents or born with disabilities, people who faced their own impossible challenges every day. To them, she was not a famous athlete or a galactic hero. She was someone who understood what it meant to keep going when everything hurt. "The race taught me something important," she would tell them. "It is not about being the fastest or the strongest. It is about refusing to give up, no matter what happens. Every one of you does that every day, and that makes you all heroes." 6 months after the race, Emma received an invitation that surprised her. The Galactic Council wanted her to speak at their annual assembly, where representatives from thousands of worlds gathered to discuss important issues. She had never spoken to such a large and diverse audience before. As she stood on the stage looking out at beings of every imaginable shape and size, Emma felt nervous for the first time since the race. "I did not set out to teach anyone anything," she began. "I just wanted to finish what I started. But I learned something important during that race. I learned that every species, every individual, has their own kind of strength." She looked directly at Commander Thrak, who sat in the audience with other military leaders. "Some of you are strong in body. Others are strong in mind. Some can fly, others can change shape. And some can live in conditions that would kill most other beings." Emma paused, thinking of her crawl through the maintenance tunnels, her climb up the impossible wall, and the aliens who had walked beside her to the finish line. But the strongest thing any of us can do is to help others find their own strength. When I was crawling through that race, broken and bleeding, I was not alone. Competitors who could have won easily chose to walk beside me instead. They showed me that real strength is not about defeating others, it is about lifting others up. The applause that followed was unlike anything Emma had ever heard. Thousands of different vocal cords, sound-making organs, and communication methods joined together in appreciation. The sound went on for several minutes. After her speech, alien representatives approached her with ideas for cooperation and exchange. Scientists wanted to study human endurance. Doctors wanted to learn about human healing techniques. Teachers wanted to understand how humans develop such strong determination. But Emma was most excited about a proposal from a group of worlds that wanted to create a new kind of competition. Instead of races that tested only physical abilities, they wanted events that challenged competitors to solve problems, work together, and never give up in the face of obstacles. "We will call them human-style competitions," explained one representative, a floating jellyfish-like being with a voice like ocean waves. "Events that test the spirit as much as the body." Emma smiled at the idea. "I think humans would be honored to help design such competitions. But remember to include other species too. Every race has something unique to contribute." As Emma returned to Earth after her speech to the Galactic Council, she realized that her life had changed completely. She was no longer just an athlete, or even just a human. She had become a symbol of something larger, a bridge between worlds and species. The race that she had finished in last place had made her more famous than any winner in galactic history. More importantly, it had opened doors for her entire species to take their place among the stars as equals, not as junior members tolerated by their betters. Years later, when Emma was old and her racing days were far behind her, children from dozens of worlds would still learn her story. They would learn about the human who broke her leg halfway through an impossible race and finished it anyway. They would learn that strength comes not from never falling, but from getting up every time you fall. And they would learn the most important lesson of all, that giving up is always an option, but it is never the only option. There is always another way forward, even when that way is a crawl through darkness toward an uncertain light. Emma Reed had taught the galaxy that being human meant never knowing when to quit. And in doing so, she had helped her species earn their place among the stars, not as the strongest or the fastest, but as the ones who would never, ever give up.